elves, demons, and God knows what else has been appearing for like the last final stretch of this Black Clover arc, as we seem to be wrapping up this elf saga from how it's turning into. For like everything that we've had from the start of the series has been kind of setting up into one just big amalgam of the saga, where now demons and God knows what else could be thoroughly getting involved into this, alongside with some ancient forefathers of Sephira or Sephiroth, if you want to find with your translations. 182 is very interesting to say, as we have a return of two characters that we wasn't expecting to come back like ever so quickly. And to be fair, I think one character in the least has a extremely goddamn good like redesign compared to his original one. So let's talk immediately about the first thing, and that is the return of Fauna and Vito. So yeah, very weird. We was like, we was not expecting these people to come back, as Raya decides to bring back Vito and Fauna, where they're like, interestingly enough, like Fauna looks more or less pretty much what she looks like when we saw like her design. The thing is, Vito has had an incredibly huge redesign. Like, he's not got the big dumb beard thing going on, all that, how his teeth are. He's a lot more younger looking. Like, it really reminds me of like Tempester from like Fairy Tail when he first came around, and he had that very weird like bestial design, and then they redesigned him to be a pretty boy. Like, it kind of really reminds me of that. It's like there's a full redesign. And one thing to note is that when they were resurrected or recreated in some manner or form in these bodies, it's the fact of the matter is they are already elves. That's just how it is. Like, they even address this as well, where it's like there's their memories and all that are like waking up and all that. It's saying like, do you remember anything at all after being like reincarnated at all? And this is what Sally was working on. She was like working on bringing some sort of like test subjects back with her, and she's, like, they're talking about like, oh, that's interesting, a fake Raya, like kind of referring that he's still in like, you know, a human's body for the most part, or at least possessing one. And like, one thing that they were talking about is something like that is saying like, oh well, we had the luxury of being able to die twice and live again, so you can say it's a luxury. They do mention though how there's like, they would press the time to bring them back, so like they mentioned as that we could only grow the two of you up to like around about 15 years old. So I think Fauna is actually supposed to be like in her 20s or something like that, and Vito is supposed to be in his 30s. Mind you, we found out like Yami was young as hell last time, so it's like, honestly, it's fucking anime aging, so like, just don't think into it. But they confirm there about like, they had the biological age of like 15-year-olds, and like, they mentioned as well as like, they were able to clone their bodies and completely replicate the mana. However, like, we have no one to thank but Sally for this research, and she even mentions as well, it's like, it is a goddamn shame that, you know, what Lee did to them, or should I say, and all that, like, with everything that they were talking about, because Raya understood, is like, Sally was crazy, but she was goddamn useful. Mind you, they don't know that she's still alive right now. And they discussing is like, look at how useful this is. And now as well, an interesting thing about Fauna, and they're kind of more explaining a little bit about what was Fauna's issue, was the fact that her previous reincarnation completely kept overusing her powers at Evil Eye, so her powers were not exactly that potent. So if you just keep spamming your like third eye or your ability, you're gonna get your ass kicked. It's the same thing why like Vito was a lot more of the threat than Fauna was. Again, like, I'm kind of glad that it is like, it seems like a retcon in some way. And a matter of fact, whether or not Tabata wanted to bring these cats, because he hinted like before that they had something in store with Sally, with like sort of her experiments and everything, and like what she was doing, whether or not like the fact that she was able to fully recreate bodies or stuff was still something, because we do know she was like working on Leet's body and having him on one of those test tubes and everything. But with how they're talking about it, is like, they're kind of like, yeah, the Fauna stuff is like, because I love the Witch arc, but I feel like Fauna, like, like, when you think of like, we just came straight from Vito, and it was like, Fauna was like a little bit more disappointing, I feel, than to what Vito was, whereas like, it took near everyone to beat Vito down, and like Fauna, I felt like, was a lot more kind of weaker They're more trying to explain the fact that she just kept spamming her abilities over and over and over, and it just wasn't that strong. On there, and they even say like, oh, there's so much more like evil also in your heart right now, and it's like, interestingly enough, she even like comments and saying like, huh, Salamander's gone. That's weird. Like, and saying like, you know, apparently like they found another worthy host of the power while Fauna's soul was still separated, and it's just like, so whilst her soul was seemingly, you know, dissipated into the ether, it seems like spirits in some way can just go to another host. They don't just stay around, and you can see like her flames are still really strong, and like how she's acting is completely the opposite of what we saw from, you know, the Fauna we knew. That was just like, you know, destruction and just like hate, like really just depressed. Like this one's like really exciting and flamey and kooky, and it's like, it's weird. And even like Vito as well, where it's like he is calm and collected. Like he's actually like kind of taking it as and like just acting like, which I appreciate, because that was the problem with them. Like, Raya wasn't that way, but like Vito and original Fauna, when they first appeared, I'm talking the very first time that they appeared in the series, they were fucking one-dimensional as fuck. It was just nothing but screaming on about despair and hate. That's all they were. So the fact that they're getting a little bit more of the personality to these two is something I greatly appreciate, because that was, I feel like, a very heavy issue. I mean, I like Vito in the end because of the fact that he was just that insane savage that he had, but overall, it's like, give them a little bit more depth now, like, to them, and like, make them a little bit less one-tracked mind, and like, you know, there was even comedy with the elves on there, where it's just like, he's like saying, yeah, before we can even go out there and, you know, get your Grimrars, like, and everywhere, so like, you need to put some clothes on, Fauna, or we're both naked right now, and even like, Raya's just making a joke about this. Where like the rest of like the 10 high elves were on there, where it's like they mention about like when they talk about these towers in the sky, it's like a bunch of them are gathered up, and they received the revelation for this moment that like the great elven wayfinder, which is the followers of Sephiroth, or as it also can be translated as well as Sephiroth, where you get to see like there's Klaus, there's also as well like the deer captain there, like you see like Leaf there, like on there, Fauna, Vito, like everyone's like there, and they're like all talking about like how excited they are and all that to see all the people around there, and they either mention it's just like he may be like that now, but Lee is there inside somewhere. Once the reincarnation, he'll go back to the way that we all know. Like how they're talking about it, because you see him and he's just there like standing just in the middle right there, and it's like with like Patrick like kind of making that little sort of note right now about like he's still like, once you go back to he'll be the one that we truly like sort of like kind of all care about. He's the one that we all know and just kind of want to see. And interesting enough, they make that comment about Yuno finally that we were talking about last week, where it's like, for some reason, whenever they address Yuno, managed to retain his personality, even though he was supposed to be reincarnated. So they're like, what's up with him? It's like, we sent someone to greet him, so it's gonna be fine. Let's just go ahead and wait for him. And it's just like, well, let's go and just get this party started. As they use the power of the tablet and use it to unseal what is inside the Clover Castle. It is a gate to hell, as they describe it, where it's like they refer to the fact that it is called the Kingdom of Shadows, and only when 10 elves, the followers of Sephiroth, have received divine revelations from our god, are able to open this. And once they put the last pedestal in that little magic stone tablet, like in the castle, they talk about their reincarnation is going to be complete, and their souls will be, the human souls will be like exchanged to hell for this dark magic. So you're like, okay, now hell and demons are getting involved. We need to stop this shit right now. Like Mimosa are there, like there. I believe like the guy's name is like we don't know his elven name, but it's like or at least like they get what his elven name is, but they call him David. And we know the fact of the matter is that David's magic ability is known as dice magic, and it's seemingly with how it works in like the higher he rolls, the like, you know, more powerful like some of his like effects are. So you see already that like he was able to go against like Mimosa and his like her cousin, and like he rolled a 2. Like it wasn't even that good, and the fact of the matter is that it was able to stop off his abilities to send up. He is pretty strong right now, and like even like you see like Jack and like Yami looking at this shit and it's like, what is going on? We can't let this go any bigger. Like we need to set this up. But before they even have time to goddamn think, like on there, the rest of like the elves coming down like with their angel wings like flowing down, and it's like, we will not even let the small hindrance. Like we need to stop those stop the followers, etc. Like right now, like we can't have this stuff. Like as they like Klaus and like all of them are like just diving right down, and it's like we can't get in close right now. And like even Zora and Noelle are seeing this like, what the hell do we do right now? And as we've been wanting to see for a while, the main crew is finally arrived into Sonata. We have finally caught up to the current time, I should say. Like we're finally back to what the past minutes that we're in, where Asta, Asta, Vanessa, Sally, like on there, like Vito, like or Chami, like everyone's there to get involved with. Which, how they describe as well with the ending of this chapter, they call it the final battle approaches. So shit like has hit that. It's like they come in on the Black Bull base, where it just punches like a bunch of these like elves right square in the face, and it's like, it is like this arc has just kept escalating and escalating, where it's like the stakes have just been raised higher and higher. And when you see Patry, when he turns around and he sees Asta and all them around, there's something in him that snaps a little bit, where he's like, God damn it, I am sick and tired of this shit. So yeah, it feels like that this is just an end of the, and it's weird because this has been, again, we've talked about it like very early on. It's like that I have talked about what can we do after the elves, like what has been, because it has been the most heaviest, it's been like the entire series thus far. Like it's been a heavy part of the story. Like again, we think like, and we're reaching that part where it's like, how at least it's feeling right now is that it could be wrapping up at the 200 chapter mark. Like that could be a huge ending for, you know, with the series. Like there've been interviews where like they've talked about with Black Clover, where it's like, oh, they could potentially go as long as Naruto. They could go on as much long. And I'm happy now that like obviously Clover finally got like it's quality like you know, really jumped up like manga wise, and then anime has always just been a mixed bag. Like, you know, the early stuff was rough, and then later on it got like very good with its quality. But just looking more at this stuff, like the more I keep like diving into it, and it's just like such a sheer improvement from what we like have seen from this. But I want to know what you guys think, because surely this is goddamn, like I've been loving this. Like every single chapter getting into this, I've been thoroughly excited. But I want to know what you guys think fully in the comment section down below. Just what do you think is going to be happening with this like final part of this arc? That is all from me though. Thank you as always as watching. I'll see you for that next chapter of Black Clover, everybody, because shit's about to get really exciting.